Call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of today's date, December 5th, 2024. Present at the front table to my far left is Jessica Vitale, a voting member. Ed McGargy, a voting member.
Hello.
Kate Meehan, our solicitor. Bill Rhodes, a voting member.
Good evening.
Jesse Poynton, a voting member.
Good evening.
And Jonathan Blount. I almost said Blunt again, but I don't want to wear it out, Jonathan. The Haverford Township Zoning Officer. We have one continued case tonight and 3 other cases listed. I'm going to dispose of those first. With respect to, Bill, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Please
Sorry.
rise if you can and repeat after me. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thanks, Ed. So with respect to case Z24-41, Mina Lala and Parag K. Lala, owners of 106 North Drexel Avenue, DC folio number 220900635500. That case is continued to our January 16th hearing. With respect to case Z24-42, Michael Henderson, owner of 2009 East Darby Road, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2203-0071700. That application was withdrawn by the applicant. With respect to case Z24-43, Nellie Smout, owner of 2704 Chestnut Avenue, Ardmore, PA, DC folio number 2206-0063400. That case is continued to our January 16th hearing. Now, that leaves one case remaining for tonight, and that is case Z23-17, continuation of a previous hearing and amended application of Sun and Raj Fuel LLC, owners of 700 Haverford Road, DC folio number 2205-003780. The original application to be amended as follows: a special exception pursuant to section 182-802D2 for a change from an existing non-conforming use of a gasoline service station to a vehicle refueling facility to permit the existing fueling pumps to remain on the property as they exist, a variance from section 182-403B1 to permit both a vehicle refueling facility and a convenience store, a permitted use under section 182-403B1B, a variance from the definition of a convenience store, section 182-106, to permit the Pace-O-Matic machine to be located in the convenience store, a modification of the 1960 zoning hearing board hours of operation to change to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The remaining relief remains as follows: a variance from section 182-708A1 to allow a loading and unloading space in front of the building, a variance from section 182-707B to provide 6 off-street parking spaces when 7 would otherwise be required, a variance from section 182-701E1B1 to permit the total existing sign area to be 140.2 square feet when a maximum of 105 square feet is permitted, a variance from section 182-701E1B2C to permit a freestanding sign with an area of 107 square feet when a maximum area of 25 square feet is permitted. The variance from section 182-701B4 is withdrawn. Okay, that's a mouthful. Bernadette.
Yes. Good evening. We usually see the laptop here to put the flash drive in to show the things. But if not, I think we do have handouts. And I had given you the exhibit book before.
Yes.
Do you still all have that?
Yeah, we have exhibit
Michael, do you still have
A1
yours?
through A15.
I have to look around. I think I might. Yeah. Okay.
We have A1, and then there are
Yes,
2
yes,
additions.
and then, so. Yes.
Sorry about that.
So when we were here last, before the zoning hearing board, Mr. Yanef had brought up the issue that, about the relief Annie Neiman was the prior attorney. Annie had indicated the refueling facility. So I went back and looked at the ordinance and found that there's a part of your non-conforming ordinance indicates that you can ask for special exception to change from one non-conforming use to another. So because I asked for that special exception, we had to go to the planning commission, which we did, I think it was November 14th.
Right.
So the planning commission, under your ordinance, it requires a recommendation from the planning commission before you can proceed again in front of the zoning hearing board. They did make a recommendation, which was a little, how shall I phrase this, basically leaving it up to the boards to decide what they,
It was 3 hours of our lives, which we will never get back.
we will never get back. Basically allowing this board and the board of supervisors to decide what they wanted to do. So it wasn't a yay or a nay in the sense that it was a legal argument. We recognize that it's a legal argument, and they were allowing both boards to decide for themselves. I think I've
Yeah, and
explained
I
that
think-
correctly.
And I think if I may, Bernadette, I'm sorry. I think that we have a suggestion for the board
Yes.
that because it's a legal
Legal.
argument, and that we spent most of the time arguing legalities and not facts the last time, that would be handled by way of, we would suspect that the board would want proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Absolutely.
And then we would argue that legal issue within the body of that pleading.
Terrific.
So
Yeah.
that we would not be spending the same time that we spent in the planning commission reiterating
Yep.
at the end of the day.
Yes.
Not necessary.
Okay, so we just, sometimes we get it right.
Yeah, we get it right sometimes.
But we thought that would be the best way to handle it, and then that way Bernadette can complete her case. And I just want to make one other housekeeping comment.
Sure.
And that is, we fully anticipated that there would be 3 other cases ahead of ours, and that the balance of the time would be spent on the applicant's case. As a result of that, I don't have my clients here in full body, and my main client, Jake Swan, who is the representative of Bridford, sustained a family loss, and my understanding is in Europe, dealing for that issue. We had requested a continuance. We decided we were going to go forward on the hearing, but I intend to ask for yet another hearing in order for us to be able to present our case, because I'm just not prepared tonight, because we thought, the time would be spent doing other things, and we wouldn't want to have everybody sitting here all evening anyway.
Okay.
Okay, but I wanted to, procedurally, I thought it'd be a good idea just to get that out of the way before
Yeah.
we start.
I want the applicant to be able to complete their case in chief. Anyway,
We would like
yeah,
that tonight. yeah.
expeditiously.
Yeah, I expect, we have 2 witnesses, Dave Damon and John Teets, who had testified at the last hearing in 2023. So I would expect that we would get through both of them.
Yeah, I'm happy that we did.
And then when we're done, you think that we might be able to come up with some estimate of how many hours your case might require? So we have to start thinking ahead. We're going to have a reorganization meeting first week of January. We're going to set our meeting schedule. And it might be helpful to think about whether we need to be scheduling,
Special night, maybe.
right? It's better than trying to figure it out. It's better to try to figure that out now than to do it completely on the fly.
And I absolutely agree with that. The problem I'm going to have is I'm not going to have Mr. Swan available to have that discussion. But I'll communicate with the solicitor and to try to figure out a date, and then it's up to the board to decide that. But I think that we would both welcome a special night, if that's possible, just to complete the entire case all at one time.
Or a night like this where no one else is.
Or a night like this
this
where we
where
get lucky and nobody else shows up.
We know we have cases already, other cases for January 16th.
For January, yeah, I'm sure.
How
Yeah.
about December 19th?
He's not back.
No.
Oh,
He's
We
not
can't, yeah.
oh, okay. All right.
back. All right, but
Go ahead.
that was the
Jonathan wants to chime in.
I just wanted to point out that we have a lot of workload for residents, applications that are getting pushed back. Some of these cases that were supposed to be on for tonight are now going to be on for the next meeting, which actually would be January 16th is the next chance we have to have a meeting. So my preference, so that we can keep these people moving forward, would be to either have a special night or push this back another night. But we're right at the point now where the January 16th agenda is already full with other cases. And we obviously have this time limitation. I'm going to suggest that Ernie and I and the solicitors get together to discuss the time frame and what time requirements there are, and get back to the board so you
Okay.
guys can make a decision about how and when you want to do your continuance.
Now, Jonathan, do we have a date for our reorganization set?
We do not.
Okay, presumably that'll be, well, the commissioners meet the 2nd.
I believe the second, which is the reason we can't have a January meeting here. That's a Thursday night. The December 19th, we're not here. January 2nd is reorganization, I believe, for the township. And then our next available night, the third Thursday, would be January 16th.
So we'll reorganize and then conduct business.
You could do it on the same night,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but that's the meeting that's
Right.
full.
yeah. I got it. So maybe the week after that.
January 9th, we could reorganize and
Only if the commissioners have finished their appointments and all that.
And Planning Commission uses this room on the alternate Thursday nights.
So January would have 5 Thursdays though.
Yes, you could go into I guess it's the 30th.
So we might want to target.
yeah, let's see.
If you had a special meeting, that would give you the whole evening, whatever it would take. And it wouldn't interfere with any of the other
Right.
scheduled items.
Check my schedule too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yes, you good?
I'm good.
Hey, can you make it on the 30th?
5th Thursday of the month.
Third Thursday, you have a problem.
My phone works.
Or the fourth.
Yes, Ed, are you guys good on January 30th?
Third.
Or the 23rd, is it?
Yep.
The,
Let the record show.
Well, I mean, why don't we try to aim for that, and we'll
Yeah.
get
Okay.
information
So,
on
January 3rd.
January 30th. Looks like it might be an all right date.
and if not, if you guys have conflicts on that date, you said the 23rd. So what do you look like on the 23rd, Billy? So we'll shoot for
I'm
the
out
30th.
of the country.
I'm
on the
going.
23rd.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's
I'm-
off
Wait,
the
what
table.
date did he say?
23rd. I'm out of the country.
Michael's got a previous commitment, so we'll shoot for the 30th. Is that
For
good for you?
was shoot for January 30th?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I put it
And
down.
I'll confirm that as soon as I'm able to speak to Mr. Swan. I'll email him. I'm sure he'll get back to me.
But Jonathan, keep that in mind when we're reorganizing and setting the schedule.
Okay, good.
While
I'll
Michael's
step
standing here, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I had 4 exhibits that I wanted to add to the exhibit booklet. If the zoning hearing board wasn't marking the letter which asked for the amended relief, I would like to mark that. So that would be A16, I believe we're up to.
Correct.
14 was the, Mr. Walco's letter, and 15 was the PA, the PennDOT information.
I wrote down crash information tool.
You wrote
That's
down, I'm sorry, crash information. It was a PA.
PA crash
PennDOT.
information tool.
So, do you need a copy of this one?
No.
Since you already have this, I don't know if you need a copy of the letter.
If you have an extra one, you
Yeah,
can
I
hand it
have.
up to me, I'll take it.
Then,
So this will be, it's in there, but these have colors on them. So that's 16.
yes.
Is everyone in agreement on these changes?
No, that's the legal argument that,
That is precise, the special exception portion of that letter is the legal argument.
So that'll be in the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Right, we'll be arguing there.
yeah. Then, I apologize.
What's 17, Bernadette?
17, the 1960 decision of the zoning hearing board. And I did email. All right if I talk offline.
They're filming it, so probably talk online. That's all right, Jess.
So I gave a copy to Michael of that decision. You'll see that was the one condition is listed in there that we're asking for the change of the time.
Yeah.
And then, I think I had explained to the board before, I have been looking for the older ordinances. Your current ordinance is your 1974 ordinance. Dennis O'Neill was kind enough to let me go to his office, and he has a lot of stuff, and he happened to have, and I did email it to Ernie, the 1974 ordinance and the zoning map. I'm unable to email the zoning map, but I have a couple copies that I can give the township. And I did give Mr. Yanoff copies of both. And it was so large, I didn't have, it was very large, I only made a copy of one, but did email it to Ernie. And I could give you more than one zoning map.
So-
Working both as A18, is that what it is?
Yeah, so I'll mark the 1974 zoning ordinance as A18 and the map as A19.
Jonathan, probably be a good idea if you go and raid his office.
If he was ever going to get rid of stuff, if I were the township, I would go over, because he does have a lot. So the reason I'm handing this in is, I had asked the township, and they didn't have copies of the older ordinances, and I couldn't locate them anywhere else. A member of the planning commission suggested Dennis, I went over to his office, and he did have it. That's sort of why it's coming over. Normally, the township would have these books, but they apparently are looking for them and don't have them right now.
Okay.
So, and I have provided those to Mr. Yanoff.
Yes.
So at this point, I'm ready to call Mr. Damon.
Okay. Well,
Do we stand next to each other or to
Yeah,
make sure
you
we're on
can.
the mic?
you can, or you could stand over there into that
Oh, that's
microphone.
right.
over there.
I can stand over there, you can stand here.
So I don't remember if you were sworn, so I'm going to swear you again. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear?
David P. Damon. I'm a civil engineer.
Go ahead, Bernadette.
I think I'm on mic. Am I on mic? Yeah, okay. And Mr. Damon, can you describe for the board what your occupation is?
Yeah, I'm a civil engineer and president of H. Gilroy Damon Associates. I'm a licensed engineer and professional land surveyor in the state of Pennsylvania.
I will stipulate to his qualification.
Okay.
And Mr. Damon, you testified at the last hearing back in 2023 in reference to this application, correct?
I did,
And you were accepted as an expert at that hearing?
yes.
Right. And you want to move him?
Civil engineering?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
And you want to move him as an expert, right, Bernadette? You want to qualify him as an expert or offer him as an expert, right?
Yes.
Okay, unless there's objection from any of the board members to accept David as an expert in civil engineering. Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
And David, could you just explain your relationship to the applicant?
I was hired as a consultant to survey the property, prepare property plan and a zoning plan.
And are you familiar with the Haverford Township zoning code?
Yes, I am.
And are you familiar with the property and the proposed use for the property?
Yes.
And I do believe, did you bring extra copies of the plan?
I have a copy, yes, I have a copy of each one here with me.
Okay. But you all have your exhibit booklet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just describe briefly the applicant's property? And we do have photos attached as Exhibit tab 13.
So the property's located at 700 Haverford Road. It's the northwest corner of Buck Lane and Haverford Road. It's in the C2 neighborhood commercial district. It has a net lot area, 17,424 square feet. And it has a existing building on the site that's a one-story building. It's 1,300 square feet, 1,312 actually. It's a service station, has 2 bays on the north side, facing Haverford Road. Out front's a canopy. It has 5 pumps. The property has 2 driveways on Haverford Road and also has a 3rd driveway that goes out to Buck Lane. Previously was a service station when we were here in 2023. Was still operating as such, and it's a fueling station. When it was operating as a service station, the parking was sort of jumbled. There was a lot of cars stacked there, typically. They also had storage containers they used for tires and parts and things out there, but there was some parking on the site, but it just wasn't painted or marked. Still isn't painted or marked. But I estimate probably parking for about 5 cars.
And Mr. David, are you familiar with the surrounding area?
Yes.
And can you describe the surrounding properties?
So on the north side, facing Haverford Road, is nail salon, something in top. On the West Avenue side, there's a apartment building on the north portion of the property. Across west is a garage, but there's residential properties as you go north on West Avenue. As you go down to the south, there's Buck Lane. On the opposite side of Buck Lane is the framer's shop. It's a framing shop. And then east of the property is Haverford Market. Doesn't appear to be open anymore, and some recently demolished property around that.
And you prepared the plans that are marked as Exhibit Tab A7, the existing features and zoning plans?
Yes.
And can you walk us through both those plans?
Well, the existing features plan, shows pretty much what I just described. It shows the improvements on the property as they exist today, the canopy, the position of the 5 pumps out front, the driveways on Haverford Road and Buck Lane. It shows the utilities and things of that nature. The zoning plan proposes keeping that same canopy and the fueling pumps as they are currently. It proposes renovation of the service bays. The doors would be removed. Sidewalk would be built across the complete front of the building. That would be the east side facing Haverford Road. And there'll also be a trash enclosure that would be added just north of the building. The also shows screening in the rear along west and some screening on the north portion of the property where it abuts the apartment building to the west. Parking lot would be striped, and it would provide 6 parking spaces. 4 would be on the north side of the building and the site, and a handicap space and a 6th space that would be on the south side towards Buck Lane. The property would continue to use existing site lighting, which is provided under there's building mounted lighting, there's lighting under the canopy, and some light standards on the property. Also, 2 lights out front on Haverford Road. So, that layout would be similar, the driveways would all remain. And I can, go on further to talk about how that site would work.
Yeah, Ed, can you just describe, I think, I may have missed it, the proposed, I apologize. The sidewalk in front of the building.
Yeah, so the sidewalk would run along that east face of the building, and it would provide, a more dedicated walking area. Well, there's no sidewalk or anything in front of the service space now, so it would extend in front of that. That would connect the parking areas with the door to the building.
Say that last part again?
It would connect the parking areas to the door of the building.
And the fueling, there's 10 fueling positions?
Yes.
And I believe the testimony before was you can only park 8 cars.
Yeah, well, the 5th pump is a diesel pump, and that's kind of in between the 2 pumps out front, so that there's really, spaces for 8 cars to be fueled at once.
So again, nothing's changing as to the canopy or the location of the fueling pumps.
That's correct.
And I think you were briefly describing the access and circulation on site.
So, yeah, there's a wide driveway on the north side of the property, and being out there and observing the traffic report. Most of the traffic comes in from Haverford Road to enter the site on that north driveway. It approaches the pumps, and there's actually 4 aisles you would have to go to get to those pump positions, and depending on the orientation of your car and how you're going to fill it, people go in, and a lot of the cars then exit to Buck Lane from that point. So that's kind of how the circulation works internally.
And then can you describe the location of the parking spaces and the loading space?
So the loading space is proposed to be on the northeast corner of the building, and it's near where the box trucks that deliver to the existing store unload their sodas and things that are in there now, and the other products that they sell. It would be where the trash enclosure is, and just south of the proposed 4 parking spaces that are striped in that area.
And I think believe you had testified at the last hearing in reference to the size of the delivery trucks, and the 2023 hearing.
So the space, the 30-foot box trucks is what the operator, because those deliveries are primarily, aside from fuel deliveries, are the size of the trucks that come in and make the delivery.
And that loading space would accommodate that?
Yes, it actually would accommodate like up to a 40-foot length vehicle without blocking a parking space.
And I believe at the prior hearing here, there's a vacuum and air pump. Can you briefly describe that's existing? Can you briefly describe that location?
Out near the northeast corner of the property where the sign for the gas station is, there's a vacuum and air machine, and it's near where we're proposing one of those 4 parking spaces at that north end of the property.
And so that's going to remain where it is today?
Yes.
And is there any construction proposed on the site that would add to the building?
Buildings not being added on to, as far as the site goes, it's the sidewalk and the trash enclosure, the only things physically being constructed out on the site.
And can you discuss impervious coverage?
So no impervious coverage would be added to the property.
And as indicated earlier, we're asking for the special exception to change from one non-conforming use of a gasoline service station to a vehicle refueling facility to permit the existing pumps to remain as they are today, correct?
Yes,
And we handed in, which I think is Exhibit Tab A17, the 1960 zoning hearing board decision.
yes.
And you're familiar with the history of the property.
Yeah, I'm familiar that there was a special exception granted in 1960.
And did we have put in as Exhibit A18 and A19 the 1974 zoning ordinance and 1974 zoning map? Were you able to review those?
Yes, I did.
What was the property zoned at that time in
It was-
1974?
It was owned C2.
And did you take a look at what was permitted in the C2 at that time?
Yes, I did.
And was a motor vehicle service station permitted in the C2 in 1974?
It was not.
Was a gasoline service station permitted in the C2 in 1974?
No, it was not.
And I think we've stressed this, the location of the pumps is not changing,
No, they aren't.
the number of pumps is not changing.
No,
Is anything about the pumps changing?
no.
And did you review the definitions of the definition of vehicle refueling facility?
Yes, I know it was discussed at some of the meetings, so yes, I have.
I'm sorry, there was discussed at,
At some of the previous meetings,
Okay.
yes.
and does a vehicle refueling refueling facility permit the retail sale of motor vehicle fuel? Excuse me.
Yes, it does.
I know. I'm sorry. Is the vehicle refueling facility permitted in the C2 district today?
No, not today.
Did you review the zoning code to determine where vehicle refueling is permitted?
Under the current zoning, it's permitted under C5 district.
And did you locate any other section of the zoning code where vehicle refueling is permitted?
No, not that specific.
I'm sorry, the last thing?
No.
And then, did you review the definition of today's definition of gasoline service station?
Yes,
And does a gasoline service station permit the retail sale of motor vehicle fuel?
yes, it does.
So both definitions permit the retail sale of motor vehicle fuel.
Yes, they do.
Did you find any other uses in the zoning code that specifically state or permit the retail sale of motor vehicle fuel?
Objection relevance.
This is going towards my legal argument, but again, I can just, both zoning ordinances are what they are, and I can make the legal argument
Okay.
in the brief.
I'll overrule the objection.
So, no, there's just, it's in the C5 and C4.
C4 is where the gasoline service stations are permitted.
Yes,
And we're asking for a variance to allow use of the property as a vehicle refueling facility and a convenience store. So two uses on one lot, correct?
right, that's correct.
And the convenience store is a permitted use in the current C2 zoning district.
Objection. Calls for a legal conclusion.
Okay, I can have him,
There's, if I could just elaborate on the objection.
go ahead.
That's essentially one of the legal issues that we have here, and that is the interpretation of the ordinance. Ms. Kearney has consistently said that convenience stores are a permitted use, but they're really not standing all alone if you read the ordinance, because the ordinance says any one of the permitted uses, and not by itself, just a convenience store. So the question of whether a convenience store is permitted is somewhat disingenuous and misleading, because it's not what the ordinance says.
And can you respond to that?
Yeah, just pull it out.
I have a copy, I have multiple copies of the C2 ordinance, if you want to see that. I can help.
Well, I would,
I-
yeah, go ahead.
In the C2 neighborhood commercial, it indicates use regulations. In any C district, land, buildings, or premises may be used or occupied by only one of the following. And it says B, convenience stores, but specifically excluding significant tobacco retailers.
That's the precise legal issue.
Right.
Maybe I'm not following.
Well, the argument is, by itself, without the language in section B1, and maybe what I should do is just give you a copy of it so you can read it.
Trucks.
Talk about it.
Yes, thank you.
The language.
Do you want this marked, Michael?
Yeah, I don't know.
According to my
It's one of
records,
these.
you're at P5, so this would be 6.
P6, for the record, is a copy of section 182-403, C2 neighborhood commercial district. We'll wait for this to be distributed. To make my argument.
8 left me.
Any more? I have another copy. Any more?
Yeah, one more, please. Thank you, Michael.
This is one of the arguments, the legal arguments that we have in this matter. And that is, standing by itself, the language, the question asking whether a convenience store is permitted in the C2 district is disingenuous in light of the application. Because the application is not merely asking for a convenience store. It's asking for a vehicle refueling station and a convenience store. And if you look at B1, it says uses by right in any C2 district, land, buildings, or premises may be used and occupied by only one of the following. And the application on its face asks for 2 uses. Now, I know that they're asking for a variance for that, but that's why I objected to the question, because the answer is not a convenience store is a permitted use within the C2 district, standing by itself, because it's not. Not in the light of this application.
Okay, I'm going to ask can you rephrase your question?
Yes, but I did ask for relief for 2 uses. One being the vehicle refueling, which is the existing pumps, and one for the convenience store. I would have to ask for a variance because to allow 2 uses on a lot, but the convenience store is permitted. This is just legal argument. The convenience store is permitted in this district. I wouldn't know how else to phrase it because it is permitted in this district. I'm asking for a variance to allow the 2 uses.
The other argument is the ordinance speaks for itself, and the board
Yeah.
has the right to interpret the ordinance.
And I was just going to say, we have a copy of it now as P6.
Yes.
So I'm going to allow you
think-
to continue with your questioning. If there's a way you can
I think I think
raise your
I can
question,
ask
so,
Dave.
yeah.
Dave, if
you.
you reviewed the C2 neighborhood commercial district, is convenience store listed under B1B as a permitted use? Convenience stores, but specifically excluding significant tobacco retailers, a permitted use under the C2.
It is listed as such.
Okay. And the proposed convenience store would be located where the service bay and the,
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry.
so it would be The entire, the building. So right now there is, a small store area that's probably, of that 1,312 square feet, maybe about 500 of it is now a store selling, various products like a convenience store would, but it would be expanded into that service bay, I think it's roughly another 800 square feet.
And again, nothing's being constructed as to where the location of the proposed convenience store will be located.
No, nothing's being added to the building, nothing's being constructed into the building.
And I did request a variance from the definition of convenience store to permit the Pace-O-Matic machine to be located in the convenience store, as the game existed in the store prior to the enactment of the amended definition of convenience store in 2024. And Exhibit Tab 11 sets forth both ordinance sections for the definition of convenience store. So when you were here before in 2023, the old definition of convenience store was in effect, and that is listed in Exhibit Tab A11. That's the first page. And the second page is the amended definition of convenience store enacted in 2024, correct?
That's correct.
So in an abundance, this is sort of legal argument, in an abundance of caution, because this has taken so long, I just asked for the relief. I don't know that it's needed. I will make that argument, legal argument, but because I didn't want to have to come back here again because we had already amended the application, I put it in there. So, Dave, it's your understanding that the Pace-O-Matic machine was already in the, what we'll call the store area in 2023 when you were here before the zoning hearing board at that time?
That's my understanding, yes.
And we're asking for a variance from to allow a loading and unloading space in front of the building. Can you explain that?
The site's unusual in that it has frontage is on 3 streets, so it has 3 front yards, and the north side, it has a real tight side yard on the north side of maybe about 9 feet to the property line. So there's not really a rear to this property in that sense because of the frontages on those 3 streets. The loading area is going to be visible from anywhere on that property. So we did look at placing it on the west side along West Avenue, but when we looked at getting to it, we decided it was not a good idea to come off of the residential street, so we had to come from the east side of the property, build a driveway. It eliminated some parking, so we had to place the parking in the rear. And we ran into a couple things. There's steep slopes areas back there, and there's also an issue where we're up against the impervious, where to get that new paving in there, we would require a variance for the imperviousness of the property. And we thought that since the loading is taking place currently in front of that building in that same location, that the operator thought that that would be the best place to do it, and we decided rather than intrude upon the residential area along West, that it made more sense to keep it where it is currently in the developed part of the property out front.
And the applicant's also requesting a variance to provide 6 off-street parking spaces when 7 would otherwise be required. Can you address that?
So the area out front, in order to keep circulation good and not interfere with that, and not, the one good thing about changing this to away from that service station is it was very cluttered with vehicles being stacked out there with storage containers, and it made sight lines bad on that site, and made the circulation not very good. So we're able to get the 6 spaces out there. And in looking at the site and talking to the operator, most of the customers come in and they utilize the store when they're parked at one of those 8 spaces out front in front of the pumps. So, we thought that the 6 spaces would be adequate, given that they have those 8 parking spaces at the pumps where people come in, pay, and get their drinks or chips or whatever they want, and then go on their way.
And we're requesting a modification of the 1960 zoning hearing board hours of operation of 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. to change to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Again, the same number of hours, correct? Just a slight
Chipped of
hour
an
change.
hour. Yes.
Is there any time limit in the current ordinance for a vehicle refueling facility?
No.
Is there any time limit for a convenience store?
No.
Does the township code limit the hours operation for a gasoline service station?
No.
Are you aware if the ordinance limits any business as to their hours of operation?
In the ordinance, they have a limit on outdoor dining areas from, I believe, 7 to 11 at night, unless they abut residential property, in which case I think it's 7 to 9. And then businesses that are significant tobacco retailers are limited. During the night, they have to shut down. I believe it's like 11 to maybe 10 in the morning.
And did you find any others?
Just those 2.
And Dave, in your professional opinion as a civil engineer, are there any unique characteristics of the property?
As I said, it's unique in that it has frontages on the 3 streets. It also, at some point in time, I believe it was after the special exception, because the deed talks about a 1966 plan where Haverford Road was only 40 feet right of way. It was widened, now it's an 80-foot right of way. And the gross area to net area, the net area is only about 55% of that gross area. So the property's been reduced by that street widening in the street right away. So that plus the fact that it has those 3 frontages are the unique parts of it. There are some steep slopes in the back that aren't great in area, but they do, also limit the property somewhat.
And in your professional opinion, did the applicant create this unnecessary hardship?
No, they did not.
And in your professional opinion, is the proposed use suitable for the property?
I believe it is, since it's similar to what's there now. The pumps are there now.
And in your professional opinion, is the requested relief compatible with the area or neighborhood?
The area is, it is commercial in nature with these uses that are adjacent to it. So I think it is consistent with that.
And in your professional opinion, will the requested relief adversely impact the surrounding area?
No, I don't believe it will adversely impact the surrounding area.
And in your professional opinion, is the requested relief the minimum to afford relief?
In my opinion, it is.
I believe that's all the questions I have of Mr. Damon.
Michael?
I want to make sure that I understand the application. The application, as you understand it, sir, is to keep and retain the gasoline service, the gasoline pumps, and to add a convenience store to that use. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. So the change of use really doesn't relate to the gasoline service station area. It only relates to the building itself, which will be changed from a service facility of some kind, whatever the definition is, to a convenience store. Is that correct?
A portion of the building portion currently is like a convenience store, so it's really the service part. Well, and I see where you're going, because it is under the definition of service station, the entire building, so, but as a practical matter, being there, portion of it is like a convenience store, portion of it's bays.
How much of the existing building is actually being used to sell goods other than gasoline-related goods? Now,
Say the last thing I didn't catch.
yeah, how
Well,
much of the
it's
building
about-
is currently being used to sell goods other than gasoline-related goods?
I would estimate maybe about 30% of the building.
Okay, but the application is asking for the entire building to be used as a convenience store. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. The existing use, strike that. The existing property is not changing itself, right? There's same egress points, correct?
Yes, correct.
There's the same driveways.
Yes.
There's the same 3 frontages.
Yes.
Okay, there's the same narrowing of a widening of Haverford Road that occurred sometime in 1966. Same thing, right?
Yes.
No change in that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell me then, sir, how these, strike that, and those are the issues that your testimony is make this property unique. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But they're the same way that they've been, at least since 1966, correct?
Well, I'm not sure of that date, but
Sometime before the 1974
What was-
ordinance, right?
yes.
So can you explain to us, sir, then how the property uniqueness supports the change of use? In other words, what is the hardship that is being alleged here that did not already exist when the property was being used as a gasoline service station? Any of those items?
Well, I think that the hardship goes to the variances that are being asked.
Well, explain that to me. What is the hardship with respect to the variances that are being asked?
So the fact that the property has frontages on the 3 streets,
Which has existed forever, right? Yes?
and the loading.
You need to
but
answer
it-
that, sir. Just yes. Yes or no?
Yes, it has
Thank you.
existed.
Frontages have been there before.
Yes.
Okay. Before 1974.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe as far back as 1960, correct?
Well, the property was separate properties, and at some point in time was consolidated, perhaps when they,
Do you know that as a fact, that it was?
yes.
When was that?
Well, when I looked at the historical plans of the property, there was a house actually that sat in the rear of it that faced West Avenue, and it was on a separate lot.
A separate lot
Yeah,
with a separate tax parcel number?
yes.
Okay. So not this lot.
Well, it was part of this property.
So, but it had a separate tax parcel number.
It was it appeared to be a separate lot from looking at the plans that I observed.
So explain to me how it is the same of this property if it's a separate lot with a separate tax parcel number.
Because at some point in time, the house was demolished and that lot was consolidated into this property.
When was it?
Probably sometime between the 1920s and 1966.
60, when the application was granted?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going way back, right? Right. So let's go back over the uniqueness of this property. So far, what you've told us is that one of the areas that makes this property unique is that it has 3 frontages, right?
Right.
But it's always had 3 frontages, right?
That's always been unique.
Always been 3 frontages, and it's been used in that fashion with 3 frontages, right?
It doesn't stop it from being unique. There's a property having three frontages is unique.
But tell me the connection between that uniqueness to the application for a change of use to a convenience store. Explain that to me. Because that's what the applicant is asking for.
Well, I'm going to object. If we're being specific, convenience store is a permitted use in the C2. We're asking for 2 uses on 1 lot.
But they're asking for a change of use from a gasoline service station to a gasoline service station or a vehicle refueling station, whichever you wish, and a convenience store. And in order to prove a change of use, you have to still meet the 5-part test of the municipality's planning code. One of that is whether there's a hardship. And we need to know whether the hardship is related to the proposed change of use. And that's the question.
Okay, and I'll overrule.
I think that's a legal argument. I think, as Mr. Damon testified, and again, we argued about this in briefs, is a property can always be unique because it has 3 frontages as you compare it to other properties. But I guess what I'm getting at is I think we're getting into a legal argument that we can make in the brief.
Yeah, and
I
I was
don't-
going
They
I
to,
don't
don't
answer
agree.
this
I
let
question.
me overrule the objection and ask Mr. Damon if you can answer the question. And if we need to repeat it, we can repeat it.
So your question is,
How is
How
the
is-
3 frontages and this unique nature of the property related to a change of use application to now add a convenience store to the existing service?
well, one of the things that brought the 3 frontages up that I talked about was the fact that, we need a loading area for the convenience store. And that, we're asking for the relief because it says that it shouldn't be in a front yard, it should be in the rear of the building, and that we can't really do that here. So that, but and since, that is a change that comes about because
That front yard has always been.
we're being,
I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
well, the front yard's always been there, I agree, since around 1960, but that, now we're looking to get a loading area sited on here for the
In
convenience
other words,
store.
you're creating a hardship by insisting that you have a loading area in the front yard, which has already existed. Isn't that what you're asking for here? Isn't that what you just told us?
No, I'm saying that because we're going to do a convenience store, we need to have
Exactly.
loading in the rear.
Exactly. You need to have a loading area because you're asking for a convenience store. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Isn't that a self-created hardship? Isn't you, if you need that, if you're telling us that that loading area is somehow related to the access points and that pre-existed on the property, you're creating that hardship because you need a loading dock or a loading area in the front of a convenience store that you are now asking this zoning hearing board to approve. Correct?
Well, I don't know whether that's correct. That's a legal argument. that
May I ask a question that's related to this?
Go ahead, John.
And I'm going
In my
to
40 years, I have nothing to ask, so.
refer to Exhibit A17, the last page. There's a list of 24 conditions that the zoning board at that time put on this. Condition number 21 says there is to be no ingress or egress on West Avenue. So would the loading need to be, in your professional opinion, to get the loading in the rear, would you need to ingress or egress on West Avenue?
Well, no, you would be able to construct a driveway along the south side, the Buck Lane side of the building, go back there, because if you go down West Avenue, it's an inappropriate road for any kind of commercial traffic, truck traffic to go to a facility like this. So you would be able to, but in doing that, you need to relocate those parking spaces out back, and then by the time you turn the truck around and get it out front, you're adding a lot of impervious back there that takes us over the maximum for the site.
So if I may follow up on that. So in other words, you are now creating, saying you now have to create yet another egress in order to satisfy the parking, which has been prohibited in the 1960 zoning decision, correct? So you have to add an additional. Is that what you just told us?
No. It would be an interior, a site interior driveway, so there'd be no new egress.
Can you have A7 with you? Can you tell us where on this site you are going to be able to create yet another driveway that doesn't adversely impact this property?
Well, that wasn't what I was saying.
He just said he's doing an internal driveway. He just told us that.
You said it was, I think you said it was
Internal to
feasible
the site,
to think of that.
A
but-
drive that goes along the side of the building, but
wait.
not from the public
All right,
street.
only one person can speak at a time.
Yep.
David, hold up a second. Go ahead, Bill.
I think the argument or the point was that it's feasible,
Possible.
but that it would then necessitate additional variances, including variances for impervious and a larger requested variance for parking, because you'd have to sacrifice some of the existing parking. So on the merits, is that your argument, that on the merits of balancing the need for different variances, that since they take deliveries in the front currently, they would just continue to take deliveries in the front?
Yes, and it was something in this, the planning process we looked at carefully, and it was that, not only that, but just reducing the impact to that residential area on the west side of the property.
Is that it, Bill?
Yeah, I just trying to make sure I was following this.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. You testified, I believe, that this is a commercial area?
The property to the north and property to the south and the property to the east are, commercial properties.
But there's also residential areas surrounding at least one side of that property, right?
There's an apartment that butts it, and then to the north of that, there's all residential properties along West Avenue.
Along West Avenue. And isn't there a school nearby?
Cooperstown School's, it's probably 3/4 of a mile
And
away.
And there's a railroad crossing there too, right?
Yeah, it's on the other side of that railroad, that Norristown high-speed line.
Do you have the 1974 ordinance in front of you?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm going to show you something.
I have a portion of it.
Sure. Is this a new exhibit, Michael? Or-
Well, this is or the existing exhibit A17? A18?
17 is the zoning hearing board decision
Then
of
it's
60.
18, A18,
That's the 74 zoning ordinance.
yes. Okay. So I'm going to show you page 50 of my copy of the zoning ordinance. The use regulations for the C2 district. Before I ask you that, would you agree, sir, that in 1974, this property was zoned C2, and that's the same zoning district that exists today?
Yes.
Okay. Am I correct that in that district, in 402.1A2, or let's start just A, the language is exactly the same as the existing ordinance request, is that correct? And that is that used by right for one or more of the following. Does it say that on there? One or more of the following. I'll show you right here.
Yeah, I see one or more of the following, yeah.
But I don't
Page
think,
50.
I don't think that's the language today.
I'm only asking what the language was in 74, and you'll understand why.
I did too.
I'm sorry, maybe my question was not clear. In the 1974 ordinance, A18, am I correct in 402.1A that there's a limitation for only one or more of the following uses by right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, which is, strike that. And that 2 is a convenience store, correct?
Yes.
All right. Did you happen to look at the 1974 1960 ordinance, to see what was permitted in the 1960 ordinance?
I'm gonna object, only because I have asked the township, they cannot locate the 1960.
That's not a proper objection. I asked whether he was able to look at the 60 ordinance. Let me explain why. I'm going to explain why. And it's really making the record for the legal argument that you'll have the pleasure of reading when we finally conclude this
I can't
case.
hear you.
I'm sorry. You'll have the pleasure of reading the legal argument when we conclude this case. And that is, Ms. Kearney has raised a request for a special exception that requires a change of zoning district, at least in our reading of it. And whether, and the question would be is how that, whether there was a change in the zoning district. And secondly, whether the use that was permitted in the 1960 decision was a non-conforming use or a special exception use, which is, if you look at the language of the special exception language that brought us to the Planning Commission, you will understand that this is an important distinction.
And so your question is essentially, has he looked at it?
As he looked at it at this particular point.
I'm going to allow
My
that.
objection is the township doesn't have a copy of it.
Right. But the question is whether he's looked at it, so he can say yes or no.
No, I haven't.
Okay, but you've reviewed the 1960 zoning decision, correct?
Yes.
And that 1960 zoning decision did not describe this use as an existing non-conforming use, but instead granted a special exception for that use on the property. Isn't that right?
I'm going to object and interject that the document speaks for itself, but, and if you're going to allow me to answer the question, if he knows.
Yeah, I'm going to allow him to answer the question, so I'm going to overrule if you know.
So, repeat the question.
It's very simple.
Yep.
Did the 1960 zoning decision indicate that the use of this property as a gasoline service station was a non-conforming use, or did it grant a special exception?
I don't know that I didn't really study it to the point where I can opine on it.
And that's a fair answer.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Sure.
But then they consolidated.
That's all I have of this witness. Thank you very much.
You know what, now, unless the board has any questions, I don't think I have.
And we may. How about if we take a couple-minute break? And then we'll go to the board question. We'll go off the record.
Taking a break.
They're taking a break.
So, and Bernadette, you have no redirect, right? You have no redirect? Okay. Questions from the board? Bill?
I have none for this witness.
Jesse?
I mean, the only thing I would follow up on my previous question was like, could you kind of, we were talking about the ingress and egress off West Avenue. And the other reason I asked that is because it's kind of hard to tell where West Avenue and Buck Lane come together. They almost come together right at the corner. So I guess that's kind of where that was where my question was coming from, because I believe that West Avenue turns 90 degrees and intersects Buck Lane. So that was where I was asking if that's where you were, if that part of West Avenue would have to be where you would go to load. But I think your testimony was that it would be an internal access drive. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. No other questions.
Ed?
No questions.
Jessica?
No questions.
And neither do I. Thank you. Okay.
And the final witness will be John T.
Hi, John. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear for the board, please?
John A. Teets, 415 Horsham Road,
Horsham, PA 19044.
Okay, go ahead, Bernadette.
And I'm going to offer Mr. Teets as an expert in architecture. I didn't know if Mr. Yanov wanted me to go through the, I could certainly ask him, what's your occupation?
No, I'll stipulate. I assume he's a registered architect.
Yeah, I'm a registered architect in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Stipulate to his qualifications.
And we have provided his CV as Exhibit Tab A5.
Is there any questions or discussion among the board? Then we'll accept John as an expert in architecture. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, did you say something? Oh, okay. And John, can you explain your relationship to the applicant?
I was hired to be an architect and consultant for the proposed reuse of a portion of the building.
And again, as with Mr. Damon, you had testified in the 2023 hearings, correct?
That's correct.
And you're familiar with the Haverford Township zoning code?
Yes, the current one. I was not involved in the older versions.
And are you familiar with the property
Yes, I am.
and the applicant's proposed use?
Yes, I am.
And can you just describe for the board what you did in relation to this property for the applicant?
We came up with various design options for whether to keep the existing building, remove a portion of it, add to it, where to put parking, and so forth. We did some preliminary plot plans, and I had checked in with the township regarding the status of, since there was like a mini, you might call it a mini convenience store. It's only about 500 square feet roughly, as Mr. Damon mentioned. But all the same products basically are typical for convenience stores, just they're very small quantities compared to what you could have in the whole building.
I'm going to object to this. I don't know how this relates to the architecture, which I certified, which I agree that he qualifies. I mean, he's not qualified to be a land planner. He's not qualified to be a convenience store operator, an architect. So I ask that be stricken.
And Mr. Teets had indicated he was hired as an architect and a consultant, and these are the type of issues that you consult with your client about.
Well, there's no foundation for that here at all.
Yeah, I was thinking he went a little bit beyond what was asked, so maybe if you can lay more of a foundation for his testimony in this regard, if you want to keep it in the record.
And I apologize, I really couldn't hear the last things you were saying.
I'm sorry?
What was the last things you were saying?
I don't want him to repeat it. I asked that be stricken.
Just have a hard time
Well,
hearing. Okay, let me,
I'm saying that as a consultant, though, we are involved in programming and involving. As an architect, we also do acquisitions of property. We help with those. So my definition of an architect is somewhat broader than Mr. Yanov's.
Well, then maybe what I need to do is question him on his qualifications rather than just stipulate, because it seems to be going much further than what I understand an architect to be involved.
Well, just to let's back up and let's lay a foundation for his testimony as to, his involvement in the project and what he was asked to accomplish.
John, can you explain what you were asked to do by the applicant?
I was asked to come up with ideas of how best to replace the repair element with a convenience store that would extend the existing, what I was going to explain is the township told me that was a snack shop, which is part of a service station. So we do talk,
Wait, we have an objection.
we do talk to townships.
Wait, John, we have an
Okay.
objection.
I'm assuming you're objecting on hearsay basis. Yeah, we can't talk about what anyone
Yeah.
told you.
Okay.
Okay, so you were describing, without indicating what other people told you, what you were doing for the applicant.
Right.
Okay. And did you just prepare the floor plans and front elevation that are marked as Exhibit Tab 9?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and can you walk us through what is shown on those plans?
Okay. On sheet A2, which, or actually, I guess it's your sheet A1. We had an entrance at almost the exact location as the existing one. We did have to make a little minor adjustment to the width for ADA adaptability. You
Would
come
you-
into the building, and where there's a dotted red double line was where the wall was. So the existing snack shop was a term that I was given, is to the left of that, and the two repair bays are to the right of that. So what we did in the existing snack shop was to put a handicapped accessible lavatory, an electrical panel closet, a prefab cooler. And then we were putting a beam in to open up that wall, and numerous gondolas along there. In the front, we had glass displays. In the back, we had a Bitcoin ATM and 2 skill machines. In the right rear corner was an office utility room with the air conditioning, a desk for accounting and so forth, and a janitor's mop receptor with a water heater over it on a shelf. And then on the far right of the building was the service counter, which included some displays and 2 point-of-sale devices. And where the front 2 doors were, we replaced with 2 triple windows in order that the clerks could see the fueling pumps, which is a requirement of the state for fuel dispensing.
So, John, I think you said at the very beginning that the existing door, you meant the existing door that is today, that you opened to go in?
Into the existing snack shop, yes. It was done many years ago, and we updated to the latest ADA standard.
And can you tell us, I think Mr. Damon had indicated the size of the 2 bays plus the existing, what you termed the snack
Right, it's
shop?
about a 500 to 800 square foot ratio, so I think he mentioned around 30% or so, so it's in that vicinity. Yeah.
I was looking for the square footage. So does the 1312 that we're asking for relief for equal the 2 bays plus the existing?
Right, it actually includes the exterior walls as well. Some codes differentiate between sales area and gross building area. But this is the gross out to out, not gross to the inside walls.
Okay, I don't think I finished my question, so I just want to make sure. The 2 bays plus what you're calling the existing.
1312
Wait,
overall to the outside.
let me finish, let me
Okay.
finish, so we can get it on the right. The 2 bays plus the existing snack shop equal the 1312?
Right.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you. You wanted
No,
to say?
go ahead.
And then when you look at exhibit tab, same exhibit tab, but what is as A2, can you explain what we're seeing there?
Okay, the existing face of the building. One second here. What we're doing is we had to close up some of the glass on the left-hand side where we have stucco with some battens. We have a stone wainscot all the way across on the bottom, but that glass obviously couldn't remain because that's where the coolers are. And then there's 2 glass panes to the left of the new door and transom, and then there's 2 sets of 3 windows where the former garage doors were. The roof line is identical to what it was. We did replace the sign over the door because it was a service-related sign for repair with the mainline food mart.
And exhibit tab 13 is a photo that represents what you would see out there.
Right, that was, that photo actually is from 23, so it should be essentially the same, yes.
And so when you talk about the service sign, you see that sign in that photo?
Police officer, this is an oval.
Yeah.
I don't have that photo in front of me.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you had the book, but okay. So and again, there's no additions to the building. You're reusing the existing
overall building.
No
that's there
additions to the
today.
walls, no more overhangs, no other construction on the outside, other than on the face of the walls itself.
And I think you had indicated that you're counting the entire area, 1312, but it also includes like the office utility area.
Right, it's the whole building,
It's the whole building.
out to out, yes.
So where product is being sold, it's not going to be in the office and utility.
No, it's much less.
And you also did a signage plan, correct?
Right.
And that is Exhibit Tab A8. And can you describe what we're seeing on Exhibit Tab A8?
You want the goalpost sign first?
Yes.
Okay. There's an existing goalpost sign, and apparently when the repair shop went in, that additional piece of the sign was added to the same structure. So we're taking that out to bring it down to that approved number.
So you're removing the Wallace Auto Service?
Right. And then the other portion of it, the wording's replaced to reflect the new name of the store.
And so the existing indicates 122 square feet with frame, and the proposed has 107 with frame. Can you explain how we got from the 122 to the 107?
Well, we removed that Wallace sign, and it made the difference.
And on the next page, is Exhibit Tab A4. It's Exhibit Tab A9, but you identify it in yours as A4. Can you walk us through the relief that's being requested for the signage?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You got that exhibit, your exhibit book?
Yeah.
Copy? Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I have an extra one.
Okay. So we covered the freestanding sign. The wall signs, there's a sign on the building. That ovally sign was 20 square feet. We're proposing 22.2. There's an existing logo sign on the canopy on each side, north and south. And that's 11 square feet. That's an existing condition. So the total wall sign area is 33, which is 0.2, which is only a difference of a little over 2 square feet. And then there's some calculations you have to do. The first floor building area, you're allowed a maximum of 10% of the first floor area of 1312, which is 131, and that number, 22.2, is obviously far under that. Then the signable area of the building is a maximum 40% of signable area, and that's based upon on the face. In other words, you have to take any area that's not window or door, and you take that number, and that gave us 27.5, and we're under that at 22.2. And on the north canopy, the signable area would be 46 square feet, and we're at 5.5, which is well under. On the south canopy is the same, it's symmetrical. And then there's also a distance of the sign from windows, cornices, etc. It has to be a minimum of 12 inches from the roof, 6 inches from the windows or cornice. And we complied with that by shifting the sign as close to the top of the windows as we could. So all signs, total sign area per street face, you're allowed 35 square foot for one street face, 105 for 3. So that comes, we had 153, which was 48 over. We reduced that by 12.8 to 140.2. So we reduced the non-conforming area, but we're still over the 105.
Uh, So I believe it's in red. It is the 140.2 square feet is the relief that's being requested.
Yes, I believe so.
And then, I apologize, did you go through the freestanding sign at the top?
Okay, you're allowed one per street face, which technically would allow us 3 freestanding signs. We only have one and only want one. The goalpost sign area, 25 square foot, as you mentioned before, the existing 122 down to 107, so we're reducing the existing by 15 square feet. The number of items on a sign has to be less than or equal to 7 items. We had 6, we're reducing that to 5. And then the distance from the right-of-way requirement is 10 feet. It's currently 0, and since we're not moving the sign, it remains at 0. And then the minimum distance to the ground is 4 foot. It's currently 5.3 feet. And because of removing that sign, it goes up to 7 foot 9 inches. The maximum height to the top of the sign is supposed to be 16 feet. The existing height is 24 foot 10, and since we're leaving the structure alone, it remains the same.
And did you review the history of the signage on the property?
To some degree, we had some pictures that, because it did change. When we first started the job, it wasn't Phillips 66, actually. So it was Citgo, so it did change. So we're familiar with that. I'm not sure if Wallace was involved back when we first started. We first looked at this property several years ago.
And one of the items in the relief we had requested indicated the existing freestanding sign is permitted to be 93.028 square feet, and the applicant's reducing that, correct?
Hey, part of that,
Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, 93.028 square feet. And we're reducing, actually, I'm sorry, we're reducing the sign to that, correct?
We're reducing it by 15 from what it is, so it's 107. We're reducing the existing.
My apologies, I think I had that wrong. And again, we're requesting relief to permit the freestanding sign with an area of 107 square feet with a maximum area of 25 square feet is permitted, correct?
Right.
And can you explain why the signage is needed?
Well, it's typical for fuel service facilities to have either a 1 or 2 post goalpost sign, or in some cases a monument sign, which is at the ground, which is done to comply with some of the smaller areas that are now allowed. But we were simply trying to leave the sign that was there and had proven successful, and it's not atypical for the different stations we've worked on.
And we removed the relief for the green LED lights, correct? We removed the relief for the green LED lights?
I believe that was agreed to by everybody.
Can I? Carl, I can't find my letter. I went into.
yes, Bernadette?
Okay.
These are extras.
I'm sorry? Your amendment letter? Yes. Yes. I just wanted to address where it indicates that we're asking for the relief for the freestanding sign with 100 square feet.
underneath that, it says,
To 93?
yeah.
Okay. To do that, the mainline food sign would have to decrease by 2 feet.
So was my request in error then? That where I indicated the existing freestanding sign is permitted to be 93.28 square
Right.
feet in
Well,
area?
all the exhibits had 107.
Had 107. So I think I made an error and repeated something, so I'd like to redact that. Okay. So again, we're looking at Exhibit Tab 9A3, the sign is to be 107 square feet within frames.
Right, simply by removing that 2 foot 5 inch sign on the bottom, which gave more headroom below, and it also increases visibility if you're looking in or out of the station, obviously.
And nothing will be replaced there? It would
No,
just be
no,
open?
that could be a condition, I suppose, if you needed it.
I'm sorry?
And, I believe they would agree not to add.
Okay.
You could ask the owner that.
And John, as an architect, in your expert opinion as an architect, do you believe the proposed use and signage is suitable for the property?
Yes, I do.
Objection, that's the form of the question. She asked whether the proposed use and signage. He's not here to determine the proposed use. I asked that that question be stricken and re-asked.
Can you rephrase?
Well, I'm sorry?
Can you rephrase
Yes.
the question, please?
Well, I'd actually like to address that. Mr. Teets is the architect who drafted the plans in reference to the convenience store, which is the proposed use that is one of the reliefs for request that there be allowed to be 2 uses on the lot. I know Mr. Yanoff's
That's not what he's here for. He's not here to testify about the proposed use. In fact, that's within the purview of the board only. But he's an architect. He's not testifying about the use at all. He's testifying about what he did, which is drawing those pictures and then talking about the signage, not whether the use is appropriate. That is beyond the scope of his expertise and certainly beyond the proffer in his qualifications.
Okay, I'm going to allow you to, I'm going to overrule your objection and allow you to ask the question. If he can answer it, he can, and then just preserve anything for the record.
Yeah, if she's going to ask the same question, my objection is going to remain the same.
John, in your expert opinion as an architect, in reviewing and preparing these plans for the convenience store, do you believe that's an appropriate use for the property?
Now, that's a different question. And
Well,
quite
you want
frankly,
me to-
that's the exact question that I'm objecting to here. He's not here to testify about whether the use is an appropriate use. That's not what he was here for. And he's not qualified to do that.
Okay. Bernadette, can you ask the question in a different way, taking into account what Mr. Yanoff is objection is?
Say the last thing you said again.
Can you ask the question in a different way? I think maybe the first time you asked it, we were okay with it. Maybe we have it read back. Now the question is changed.
Yeah, the first time I asked it, it said, in your professional opinion as an architect, is the proposed use and signage appropriate for the property?
I object to the proposed use portion of that. The signage, he can testify to that,
Okay.
but not to the use. That's
Okay.
the issue before the board.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'll sustain your objection in that regard.
John, then we're asking the question for, is the proposed signage appropriate for the property?
Yes.
And will the proposed signage adversely impact the surrounding neighborhood?
No, there's fact, there's less signage than's there now.
Will the proposed signage alter the character of the neighborhood?
No.
And in your opinion, as the architect who prepared the signage plan, is the requested relief the minimum to afford relief?
Yes.
I believe that's all the questions I have.
I have no questions.
Board, Jess? Sorry.
So it looks like you're increasing the signage square footage on the building from 20 square feet to 22.2 square feet. Is there any reason that building sign can't remain at 20 square feet?
Not in stay in business, in my opinion.
Goes beyond the scope of his expertise. He knows nothing about the business of a convenience store or a gas station. He's only here to testify about the sign. So I ask that that answer be stricken.
Well,
Board questions.
if there's, okay. I'll overrule the objection, let him answer, and maybe you can explain your answer a little bit better, because I thought I understood what you were saying. But can you explain your answer? Why is it that the difference in the business makes a difference in the sign?
Well, all boards vary. 25 square foot's on the low end. I won't say it's the only one. But generally, the more restrictive ones require a monument sign, which is very close to the ground and can be a lower amount of area with very small numbers and so forth. There is research about the minimum size of digits in terms of distances. I've done extensive testimony on this in King of Prussia. And I just want to say that the digit signs that we proposed are appropriate for the decision-making process when you come north or south on Haverford Road. And it's consistent with what other stations have found to be successful.
Just to clarify, I'm not talking about the digit signs for the gas. I'm talking about the sign on the building that says main
It's only
line.
22 square feet. It's small. It's only 2 square foot bigger than what was there.
Right. So
You have to be
I'm
able to see it from the road because the building sits back behind 2 pump islands.
Okay, so I'm just asking for what drove the need to make the sign bigger by 2 square feet?
Well,
Because like you
the
said,
actual
it's 2
building
square
signs were
feet.
well under the requirement. The one where we're over was the goalpost sign.
Okay, thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, were you aware that there was a variance given for the sign?
Yeah, so because it was, I guess when they widened Haverford Road, that all of a sudden it came to a 0 setback situation. I
No.
gather it probably wasn't that
There was
original.
another sign, there was another, excuse me, I'm sorry, but there was something before us that, because I was the one that objected to the green sign originally, when we approved that. So there was another already granted, increase in the sign, for the pedestal sign, changing it to, you went from a existing sign to a, with changing lights and stuff on it. So that was a
The digital,
one, yeah. So that's already granted. So I'm confused why all of a sudden, if it was a store, it was a service station and a gas station, why the sign has to be bigger on the building now after all these years since 1960?
well, it is a regular convenience store, and we were asking for, what, 2.2 square feet? Not much bigger. It's far under what's allowed for the total building signage.
But your existing monument sign is also was given a variance already, so it's already bigger than it was allowed to be under the
The
ordinance.
total sign area, yeah.
So the bulk, all the signs have been approved. Why do we have to have more?
Well, it's just, for businesses to survive, generally you need to have adequate signage. And most people say that you should have a sign on the building.
Objection.
Most people that I know and have worked
Objection.
for 45 years
Objection.
say that.
Yeah,
hold on,
John, you have to
yeah.
wait.
We're not, yeah, we can't talk about what other people say or
No, I'm
hearsay.
saying, but it's an industry standard, that's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
We can, give it the weight that it deserves.
Okay. That's all I have.
Bill?
Just one question make sure the record's clear.
Yeah.
For any facility that's selling gasoline,
Yeah.
they are required to have signage about the prices of the being charged at the pumps, so that motorists can see that without having to pull into the gas station.
That's true.
Jesse?
No question.
One final question. The relief that we're requesting for the signage is the same relief that was requested in 2023.
Right.
And we didn't change anything.
No.
No, and that relief was granted at that time.
Yes, it was.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
I just have one thing to say
Go
about that. This
ahead.
is a de novo proceeding, and what happened in 2023 has no relevance to this proceeding.
Well, I think that's another legal,
That's the only comment I'm going to make.
I think that's another legal argument because this is on remand. I've never had a decision made in the other case. It's still up on appeal. It was remanded back. So I understand what you're saying, but the judge never said de novo. But we can make that legal argument in our briefs.
Do you have anything else tonight, Bernadette?
Just move for the admission of the exhibits.
No objection.
Okay, they're admitted?
I think I offered an exhibit as well. I'd like to move
You
for
did,
it.
yeah.
You did.
Sorry,
Which one was that one?
E6, which is the chapter 182 of the zone.
A copy of the ordinance.
Oh, the copy, yeah, no objection.
No objection? Okay, that's admitted. Anything else we need to address tonight?
That's it.
That will.
Bernadette? Anything? No.
Yes. We certainly, I'm not sure how many witnesses Michael's going to have, but we may have to bring back witnesses
On rebuttal.
based on his presentation of his case. But yes, the case in chief, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bernadette. And Michael, I mean, you'll need a full night, right? Do you think that'll be enough?
I'm hoping, yes.
Okay.
I'm doing my best to curtail the number of witnesses so that you don't have to listen to the same thing
Repetitive, yeah.
over and over and over again. I'm trying desperately to
Thank
make
you.
sure that.
Good.
No guarantees. But I'm making.
Okay. Jess?
But if I could suggest, can I suggest something? We can go off the record on this.
Yeah, well, all right.
It's just
We'll go
a
off.
timing suggestion.
Have a wonderful holiday, everyone. So no other administrative matters for the board to discuss? All right, then we are adjourned.